Hey guys, welcome back to the Libations Academy, and if you're new here, welcome. So today I'm going over how to taste beer like a pro, and you may be interested in doing this because you want to take a test or you just want to understand beer a little bit better, and tasting beer rather than drinking it is going to help you so much. So we do something called the beer tasting process. It's a very short but very effective way of analyzing beer so that you can understand it more. When I started tasting beer, I literally, my beer knowledge skyrocketed. So I definitely recommend it. So with that being said, grab yourself a beer because it's not gonna be fun watching this video without having a beer in your hand, and let's get started. Okay, so step one is to pour your beer into a glass because it's not gonna do you any favors from drinking out of a bottle or a can. Now that we have our beer in our glass, let's go ahead and start the tasting process with step number one, which is appearance. So appearance is just a fancy way of saying, look at your beer. So observe the color. What color is your beer? And go a little bit deeper than like, oh, my beer is brown or my beer is yellow. Is it like a really straw yellow or is it like a gold yellow? This beer is pretty dark brown, but if I look at it in the light, there's a really pretty red hue going on in it. So just take a look at your beer and just note how deep the color concentration is or how light the beer is. Also, you want to take a look at the head of the beer. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I poured this beer like 5 minutes ago and the head's kind of gotten a little bit smaller, but it's still there. So sometimes beers might have a really giant head or hardly a head at all. And then take a look at the head retention. So this one's a nice, like tan colored head, and it's staying put, which is nice. Also, you wanna take note if there's any floaties or anything going on your beer, or maybe if your beer is hazy, that could be a problem, or it could be done intentionally by the brewer. So just think about these aspects. Appearance really isn't too hard. Just take a look at the color concentration, whether the beer is hazy or not, and the head. Okay, let's move on to probably the most important part of the tasting process, which is aroma. So smell your beer. Now, aroma is super important because 90% of what we taste is through our sense of smell. So it's really easy to get caught up in actually just tasting the beer and completely forgetting to smell it. But if you do that, you're gonna miss out on a lot of different flavors that you actually could be getting just by smelling your beer. Okay, so I'm getting a ton of chocolate aromas in this beer and just almost like a roastiness and a little bit of fruit, but beyond that, there's not much else going on. It just smells like a chocolate milkshake or something. It smells delicious. Things that you could possibly be smelling are like malty aromas, so anything from bread to coffee. You can get spicy aromas, you can get fruity aromas, you can get earthy aromas. There's a whole bunch you can smell in beer. And if you're having a lot of trouble picking out these specific aromas, check out my video on beer ingredients because that'll help you understand where aromas come from and help you pick out a few more things. So I know it can be really hard to do when you're just starting out, but just keep asking your brain what it's smelling. And before you know it, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I smelled chocolate milk in this beer. That's amazing. Okay, once you've smelled everything you possibly can in your beer, then we can move on to everybody's favorite part of the tasting process, which is tasting your beer. Ah, so good. So the first thing you want to think about after you've tasted your beer is, did you taste what you smelled? I get a ton of chocolate and a little bit of a sweetened espresso on the palate, which is pretty much what I was smelling as well. But there could be something that surprised you when you're tasting your beer. So think about that first. Then think about how bitter the beer is. This beer is pretty bitter, but it's really balanced out by the maltiness. So it's bitter, but it doesn't taste ridiculously bitter, if that makes sense. Also think about the mouthfeel. How heavy is that beer weighing in your mouth? Some beers are really, really light and others can be super, super heavy. Think about the carbonation. Some beers are really light and brisk and then others might be really smooth and creamy. Finally, you want to think about the finish. How long is that beer hanging out after you've taken a sip? So some beers are really, really light and they're done as soon as you taste it. And then other beers are going to linger on and on and on. This beer is hanging out, which is really cool because I think that that's what it's supposed to be doing. So these are all just fun things to think about. So to recap, what you should be thinking about when tasting your beer is the actual flavors, the bitterness, the mouthfeel, and the finish. Okay, now that we've tasted our beer, there's only one step left to do, and that is to evaluate what you just tasted. Think about what you liked about this beer, and if there was something that you didn't like about it, what didn't you like about it? This is so important because when you're just getting into beer or when you're trying to learn about different beer styles, it's really important to know like what you like and what you don't like, or what the different aspects are of different styles. All right, now I want to hear from you. What beer did you just try and what did you like about it? Or was there something that you didn't like about it? Let me know in the comments below. I want to know. Thanks for learning your drink with me, and have fun with the beer tasting process. It's going to help you learn about beer so much more. I'll see you next time. Cheers.